There. Everyone was suddenly pointing at the screen. It's a miracle. Mortati looked up. The camera angle was unsteady, but it was clear enough. The image was unforgettable. Filmed from behind, the cameralegno was kneeling in prayer on the earthen floor. In front of him was a rough-hewn hole in the wall. Inside the hollow, among the rubble of ancient stone, was a terracotta casket. Although Mortati had seen the coffin only once in his life, he knew beyond a doubt what it contained. San Pietro. Mortati was not naive enough to think that the shouts of joy and amazement now thundering through the crowd were exultations from bearing witness to one of Christianity's most sacred relics. St. Peter's tomb was not what had people falling to their knees in spontaneous prayer and thanksgiving. It was the object on top of his tomb. The antimatter canister. It was there. Where it had been all day. Hiding in the darkness of the necropolis. Sleek. Relentless. Deadly. The cameralegno's revelation was correct. Mortati stared in wonder at the transparent cylinder. The globule of liquid still hovered at its core. The grotto around the canister blinked red as the LED counted down into its final 5 minutes of life. Also sitting on the tomb, inches away from the canister, was the wireless Swiss Guard security camera that had been pointed at the canister and transmitting all along. Mortati crossed himself, certain this was the most frightful image he had seen in his entire life. He realized, a moment later, however, that it was about to get worse. The cameralegno stood suddenly. He grabbed the antimatter in his hands and wheeled toward the others. His face showing total focus. He pushed past the others and began descending the necropolis the way he had come, running down the hill. The camera caught Vittoria Vetra, frozen in terror. "Where are you going?" "Cameralegno. I thought you said. Have faith," he exclaimed as he ran off. Vittoria spun toward Langdon. "What do we do?" Robert Langdon tried to stop the cameralegno, but Chartrand was running interference now, apparently trusting the cameralegno's conviction. The picture coming from the BBC camera was like a roller coaster ride now, winding, twisting. Fleeting freeze frames of confusion and terror as the chaotic cortege stumbled through the shadows back toward the necropolis entrance. Out in the square, Mortati let out a fearful gasp. Is he bringing that up here? On televisions all over the world, larger than life, the Camerlengo raced upward out of the necropolis with the antimatter before him. There will be no more death tonight. But the Camerlengo was wrong. 121. The Camerlengo erupted through the doors of St. Peter's Basilica at exactly 11:56 p.m. He staggered into the dazzling glare of the world spotlight, carrying the antimatter before him like some sort of numinous offering. Through burning eyes he could see his own form, half naked and wounded, towering like a giant on the media screens around the square. The roar that went up from the crowd in St. Peter's Square was like none the Camerlengo had ever heard, crying, screaming, chanting, praying. A mix of veneration and terror. Deliver us from evil, he whispered. He felt totally depleted from his race out of the necropolis. It had almost ended in disaster. Robert Langdon and Vittoria Vetra had wanted to intercept him, to throw the canister back into its subterranean hiding place, to run outside for cover. Blind fools. The Camerlengo realized now, with fearful clarity, that on any other night, he would never have won the race. Tonight, however, God again had been with him. Robert Langdon, on the verge of overtaking the Camerlengo, had been grabbed by Chartrand, ever trusting and dutiful to the Camerlengo's demands for faith. The reporters, of course, were spellbound and lugging too much equipment to interfere. The Lord works in mysterious ways. The Camerlengo could hear the others behind him now. See them on the screens, closing in. Mustering the last of his physical strength, he raised the antimatter high over his head. Then, throwing back his bare shoulders in an act of defiance to the Illuminati brand on his chest, he dashed down the stairs. There was one final act. Godspeed, he thought. Godspeed. 4 minutes. Langdon could barely see as he burst out of the basilica. Again the sea of media lights bore into his retinas. All he could make out was the murky outline of the Camerlengo, directly ahead of him, running down the stairs. For an instant, refulgent in his halo of media lights, the Camerlegno looked celestial, like some kind of modern deity. His cassock was at his waist like a shroud. His body was scarred and wounded by the hands of his enemies, and still he endured.